So, so you and Nick got married. When did you get married, and who was in your wedding, first of all?
We got married in February the 13th, 1949 at the Holy Spirit's Church, although at the time I think it was called Holy Ghost.
Holy Ghost Church.
In Centerville. Who was in the wedding was Lily Whiffley, and Joe Shelber was the best man, and Lily was the maid of honor.
Very nice. Okay, so you got married there, and where was your reception? And
We didn't have a reception. We had we went to Val's restaurant in El Viso.
Oh, nice.
The would be Joe and his wife Bee, and Lil and her husband John Whiffley, and Nick and I.
You got married, and so tell me about where you lived. And
Well, then we lived for 3 months in an apartment in Newark, and then we moved to an apartment in Fremont or Centerville, which was called the Pierce Apartment. It's where right next to the Centerville Grammar School.
okay.
Then we lived there for 3.5 years, and then we moved to Newark and lived there until for 63 years, when I sold the house. Then after Nick passed away.
So the house that you got in Newark, did you buy that house new?
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
Yeah. And then then Nick built onto the house 3-4 times. And we said that we were like the Winchester House in San Jose, because we were always building on.
So where were you? What was the location? What was the address?
36625 Jennifer Street.
When were those houses built then?
They were building them when we moved in, 1953. Yeah.
So Newark wasn't incorporated yet either.
No.
So you saw a lot of changes happen in that city of Newark.
Oh, somewhat, a lot.
What are some of the highlights you remember about the changes? Either celebrations, who lived where? I mean, you were there before actually it started really getting crowded.
Oh, yes, yeah. Well, actually, I would say we were the second track house being built in Newark.
So you moved there. Mike was already...
He was born, he was 3.5 years old when we moved in.
Oh, when you moved in. So, okay, what are changes you saw happening in Newark? What are highlights of things that you remember, how it was and how it changed?
Well, the downtown Newark moved to various spots in Newark, that you no longer went downtown because there was not too many businesses there. Like Lewis Center, and there was another one out by Jarvis. There's all those shopping centers. Because then there were, no, actually, I don't feel there was actually what you call downtown shopping. Or maybe you went to Fremont to go shop, or to Hayward or San Jose or something like that.
So when you first moved in, there still was not a very big downtown in Newark, is what you're saying?
Well, I think, how many people were in Newark? 400? Am I saying that correctly? There wasn't very many people.
Wasn't very many
No.
people.
Oh.
So did you have a doctor there? There was an old-time doctor?
Yes,
or?
Dr. John O'Connor.
Okay, O'Connor.
He was there. We had a church. We were very, very active in Little League. Nick was very active in Chamber of Commerce at one time. He helped build a couple of floats for the parade.
How about, do you remember when Newark Incorporated? Did you
Oh.
vote for that?
Oh, definitely. We did not want to go in with Fremont. I think the whole town probably
Voted
voted
to-
for it,
Right.
because we didn't want to be swallowed up by Fremont. At one time, Nick was going to run for, on the council for Newark. And then he felt that there was going to be too much of his time, so before the election, he bowed out. Was very good friends with Jim Valentine. He was very involved with Little League, and this is how we met him. We used to go fishing together and go out together.
So I noticed in the book that you had pictures of the floats
Mhm.
in the parades.
Mhm. And there was a lot of fun for Nick to be helping, on those things. Well, he was a very creative man anyway.
When you got married, tell me about what work Nick did and then what work you did, or did you stay home, or what that was?
Well, what I did is I stayed home, but when it came time to make bills, then I would go in and help. I worked part-time for a while, and then full-time, and then part-time, and
Well, Mike was growing.
yeah.
At the creamery, always at the
I'm
creamery.
always at the creamery,
Great.
yeah.
Nick, after you got married, what, you said he worked first for his brother Newell?
He worked for his brother, New, driving truck, and then working, his brother had a feed store in Newark, and then he'd work in the feed store, but mostly driving truck. And then he went bankrupt, Newell's, with the feed store. And then for a very short time, Nick worked for Hunt's Cannery in Hayward. And then he went to work for Leslie Salt.
And what did he do for Leslie Salt?
After a while, after a few months, he went to work in the maintenance, in the machine shop, in maintenance, and was there the whole time.
He was very creative,
Oh, very creative.
and so he could probably fix just about anything, huh?
Oh, I should say.
That's what I would think.
And then I used to kid him all the time that he would fix things at Leslie Salt, but if there was something broken at home, that was on back burner.
And then both of you were involved in Mike's Little League?
Very much. In fact, we were,
Oh, you were the founding
yeah.
members
yeah,
of the
Yeah. Newark Little League?
Newark Little League.
It was, being the secretary, I remember one time the fellows wanted, this is when he was no longer a coach, he was a umpire, and they wanted umpire hats. And I said, we don't have enough money, you can't buy them. And they didn't buy them.
So you ruled the roost as far as, because you had the money.
But yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. It was a fun time.
Yeah.
Met a lot of long life friends.
Right, because you all had kids together,
Mhm.
and then as the kids grew, you could go through with them, and
Yeah, and one time I remember, this is when Nick was the coach, his team was the Tigers, and he had to work overtime, and so it was time to pick out the boys for the team, and so he had me and another father pick out the boys. We needed one more boy, and so the other father said, well, who do we pick out? And I said, that kid over there, he's awful cute. I think you should have him on the team. And he was one of the best players.
oh, that's funny. So how many years were you guys in Little League?
First Little League was through the city,
Oh,
and then we formed the Little
Newark.
League, the official Little League, and we were in it. Well, I was in it as when Mike was too old, but then Nick stayed on as an umpire. Oh, and of course we had high school was changed. You went to Newark Memorial,
Right.
and then the high school, which was, then became Newark Junior High.
So did Mike, was he experiencing those changes as Newark grew to go to different schools?
Yes, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He first went to, which was maybe 2 blocks, 3 blocks from our house, grammar school. And that became, when that closed down and apartment buildings were built there, and then Graham moved to another location. He went to Silva School, which was on Newark Boulevard. And then he went to Newark High School. He graduated 8th grade from Silva School.
Silver School,
Mhm.
oh, Newark High.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's great. So, and then anything else as far as, so how long did Nick work for Leslie Salt? How long did you work for the Creamery? And
I worked, Nick worked 34 years for Leslie Salt, and I worked all part-time and full-time 59 years at the Creamery. And I loved working there because people that moved out of the area, that was the first place that they came to when they came back. And it was neat because you knew everybody that came in.
And actually, so you were there very close to when they opened, a few years after, to live there and work there. And you were there when they closed.
Yeah.
So Nick worked, so you were 59 years at the Creamery. Nick was 34 years at Leslie Salt.
Which, that changed to Cargill after, I don't know how many years it was Cargill, but
Nick passed away last year in 2014. Quite a change for you.
very much so.
Oh my gosh, this has
Yeah.
been a hard year, I would think.
Yeah, it was. It was the best move for the simple reason, if the family is going to have a get-together, you know, that's not planned or anything, I'm included.
You're right here.
Yeah, yeah. And Mike lives, Mike and Charlene, they live 2 miles from here. Nick was cremated, and we have his ashes on, what is it, Don Edwards Refuge. He overlooks the bay, he overlooks Leslie Salt, he overlooks our house.
Just
Yeah,
really close
yeah,
to
yeah.
his, where he grew up
Yeah.
and was born and raised. Mike got married to Charlene, correct?
Mhm.
And how many children does he have?
He has two boys.
2 boys.
No,
And now, are both boys married or just one?
both boys are married. Kelly, the oldest, he has 2, which is 4 and 2 years old. And Kyle has 1 that's 3 and 1 to be born next month.
Oh, how
Yeah,
wonderful. So you're going to get to see those
Yes, yeah.
great grandkids,
Yeah.
and they all live in the same, in the
In the-
general area?
They live within, I think, about 2 miles of each other in San Jose.
Is there anything in that period of time you want that highlights that you feel like you want to talk about?
Other than building the house, building onto the house, I can't, we did a lot of traveling.
With your,
Travel.
after retirement?
After, even before, we did a lot of traveling. We had a motor home, which we did a lot of that, but we did other, like going to Mexico. I think we went to Mexico 5, 6 times.
Oh, wow.
So
Did you
that-
drive down there? Or?
Yeah, sometime, and then sometimes, mostly on tours, went to Europe, and I feel that it was a great thing that we did, travel.
I remember, and did you guys like to hunt and fish, or did Nick like to hunt and fish, or fish, or?
He fished, he didn't particularly care for it, he liked the company of the
Of the
fishing.
people who were
Yeah,
fishing
yeah,
with him, and
yeah,
so,
yeah,
I see.
yeah.
And he had a lot of hobbies.
Oh,
I mean, every time I looked, he was either painting, or what were his hobbies? What were, oh, tell me about his airplane.
Well, he had, when he got out of the service, a lot of people were able to go back to college, and he didn't want to go to college. So he learned how to fly an airplane thanks to Uncle Sam.
Oh, I see.
And then he, when we got married, then it was too expensive. And when he became interested in flying again is when Johnny Whiffley bought his airplane. So then he got his license renewed and bought a little Luscombe, which is a two-seater.
Oh, yeah.
And then he had that at the Centerville Airport. It was on Maury and Blakely in Fremont.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So, just sort of to wrap up, can you tell me something about the people that you knew? Like,
Oh, you mean the councilman?
yeah.
Yeah, well, there was, I know I'm not saying all that we knew, because I would say that we knew personally 75–85% of them.
Right.
Hank Lewis, Jim Valentine was our mayor for what, 29 years?
Yeah,
Something
long
like
time.
that. And John Sandus, Clark Redeker. To me, they were all, I was always very satisfied with our politically speaking, of our councilmen, and I think they did a good job, yeah.
So, sort of to wrap it up, what did you feel about living in Newark? What did you feel about Newark?
Very, very proud of Newark. I always was glad that I lived in Newark. It's small. It's a nice place to live. And I think our politics is good, very good. No, I like living in Newark.
Oh, that's
Very much so.
very good to
Very
hear.
proud of Newark.
Yes,
Yeah.
very good to hear that.
Yeah.
You're a Newark person through and through.
Even though I live in Santa Clara, I'm still a Newark person.
That's it. Not going to get the Newark out of you, are we? Thank you, Elly, for talking with me, and I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I thank you for picking on me.
Oh, I loved it. Okay, thank you.